You know that moment when someone says something completely ordinary and you feel a flash of irritation so disproportionate it almost embarrasses you? Or when you find yourself criticizing someone for a trait that, if you're honest, sounds a little too familiar? There's a version of you that you've spent your whole life trying not to be, and it's running the show from behind the curtain. Carl Jung called it the shadow. And here's the truth. The parts of yourself you refuse to see are often the parts with the most control over your life. In the next 10 minutes, I'm going to show you how to find it, face it, and start integrating it. Because once you do, you unlock something powerful, the ability to control your reality by mastering yourself. Here's the strange thing about being human. We spend enormous energy trying to be acceptable to ourselves, to others, to some imagined standard we absorbed before we were old enough to question it. And in that process, we don't just choose who to become. We also choose who not to become. We push certain parts of ourselves into the background, not because they're evil, but because at some point they felt unsafe to express. Maybe anger wasn't allowed in your home. Maybe vulnerability was mocked. Maybe ambition was called selfish, or sensitivity was called weakness. So you learned, you adapted, you tucked those parts away. Jung put it bluntly, what we do not bring to consciousness appears in our life as fate. That anxiety you can't explain? It's often the pressure of something unacknowledged trying to surface. That pattern of self-sabotage where you undermine your own success right when things start going well? That's the shadow, running interference from the dark. The shadow isn't your enemy. It's a storage room you forgot you had. Inside it are things you rejected, things you were told to reject, and, this is the part most people miss, things you never knew were yours to begin with. Now here's where it gets interesting. The shadow is not here to destroy you. Yes, it holds your anger, your envy, your fear, but it also holds unlived potential. Creativity you suppressed because it wasn't practical. Assertiveness you buried because it felt dangerous. Joy you dimmed because it made others uncomfortable. Jung believed the shadow contains not only what we've rejected, but what we've never allowed ourselves to become. There are strengths in there, buried under years of conditioning, waiting to be reclaimed. So the goal isn't to defeat the shadow, it's to integrate it, to bring it into the light, to stop running from parts of yourself and start understanding them. This is the work, and it's not comfortable, but it's one of the most important things you can do. Let's talk about how the shadow actually shows up, because it's not always dramatic. Often it's subtle. The clearest sign? Projection. This is when you see in someone else what you refuse to see in yourself. You know that colleague who irritates you beyond reason? The one whose arrogance or neediness or dishonesty just gets to you in a way that feels personal? There's a decent chance they're holding up a mirror. Jung said, everything that irritates us about others can lead us to an understanding of ourselves. Now, projection is a complex mechanism with multiple layers. I've broken it down in detail in a dedicated video where I show you the exact patterns, real examples, and how to catch yourself in the act. I'll link it in the description. So why is it worth facing all of this? Because integrating the shadow fundamentally transforms your emotional intelligence. People who do this work, they become emotionally unshakable. But what does this actually look like? Take someone who's struggled with anger their whole life. After integrating the shadow, they don't become passive or indifferent. They start recognizing anger as legitimate and learn to express it consciously, proportionately. They become emotionally stronger, more whole. Or think of someone with social anxiety, avoiding situations, paralyzed by fear of judgment. By integrating the shadow aspects tied to insecurity and approval seeking, they gradually expose themselves to those situations with genuine confidence. Here's what changes. You reclaim dissociated parts of yourself. Psychic energy that was trapped in repression gets released, and suddenly you're more authentic. You act from who you really are, not just to maintain a mask. More resilient. Intense emotions no longer dominate you. They're legitimate parts of your being. Less reactive. You recognize your triggers. You stop unconsciously projecting what's yours onto others. More whole. That's the payoff. Now let me show you how to actually do it. Shadow integration isn't a destination. You don't arrive, plant a flag, and call it done. It's a practice, a constant recalibration. The challenge? Keeping that awareness alive when you're stuck in traffic, arguing with your partner, or doom scrolling at 11 p.m. So how do you stay conscious in real life? Jung didn't believe the shadow needed to be attacked or exercised. He believed it needed a seat at the table. You're not trying to fix yourself. You're trying to see yourself more completely. Here are the actual techniques, unglamorous, practical, and surprisingly effective. Technique 1. Cultivate constant self-observation. Throughout your day, notice your automatic reactions. Notice when you're defensive, when you're judgmental, when you're performing. This isn't just philosophy, it's neuroscience. Studies show that emotional reactivity is a learned habit. But here's the good news, you can rewire it. Research confirms that through self-observation and cognitive reframing, you can literally train your brain to be less reactive. And here's something powerful. Awareness itself interrupts the pattern. Even if you're already in the middle of a reaction, even if you've already snapped at someone, the moment you notice it, something shifts. You might catch yourself mid-sentence and realize, wait, I'm using my mother's words right now. This isn't even my voice. That recognition? That's the circuit breaker. You've already reacted, but by seeing it clearly, you stop the momentum. You stop feeding the pattern. The flywheel stops spinning. And maybe next time, maybe not today, maybe not tomorrow, but eventually, you'll catch it earlier. You'll feel the reaction rising and you'll pause. You'll choose differently. This is how awareness works. It doesn't demand perfection. It just asks you to see clearly. Technique 2. Sit with discomfort. Most of us are experts at avoiding what we don't want to feel. The moment anxiety arises, we reach for distraction. The moment sadness surfaces, we push it away. The moment anger flares, we rationalize or suppress. But avoidance doesn't make these feelings disappear. It just sends them into the shadow where they gain power. The practice? Let yourself feel what you normally avoid. Not to dramatize it, not to act on it, just to be with it. What does your fear actually feel like in your body? Where does your anger live? What happens if you breathe, stay present, and don't run? This is integration in its most basic form, meeting yourself where you are. Technique 3. Use reflective writing. This one is deceptively powerful. Jung used writing as containment, not self-expression. The page isn't where you vent. It's where you slow the psyche down before it hijacks you. Because emotions that stay unspoken don't disappear, they go underground, and underground they organize. So the page becomes a neutral meeting room, not a courtroom, not a battlefield. You don't judge what shows up, you just let it exist. Try this. Next time you feel that familiar irritation, write exactly what you're thinking. No editing, no philosophy, just raw. I hate that she always does this. I hate that I care. I hate that I'm the one who notices. Don't analyze it yet, just let it land on the page. Then read what you wrote. Look for patterns, look for beliefs you didn't know you held. Look for the voice beneath the voice. Writing creates distance. It lets you see your inner world more clearly, and it often reveals shadow material that would otherwise stay hidden. Technique 4. Pay attention to your dreams. Jung considered dreams one of the most direct pathways to the unconscious. They bypass the defenses of the waking mind and speak in symbols. If you're serious about this work, keep a dream journal. Write down whatever you remember, even if it seems meaningless. Over time, patterns emerge. Recurring figures, recurring situations, recurring feelings. Dreams where you're being chased, where you lose control, where you encounter dark or aggressive figures. These often point to shadow content trying to surface. Don't rush to interpret, just capture it, let it sit. Sometimes the meaning arrives weeks later when you're not even looking for it. Technique 5. Talk to the shadow. Yes, really. This one sounds strange, but stay with me. Jung called it active imagination, a controlled inner conversation where you take a feeling like resentment, fear, or envy, and you engage with it, ask it a question. Then you listen, not to obey, not to justify, but to understand. Because Jung treated the unconscious as something alive and autonomous, a collaborator with terrible communication skills. And when you give it permission to speak, it stops needing to scream through your reactions. Try this. When you feel intense emotion towards someone, pause and ask internally, what are you trying to tell me? What are you trying to protect me from? Then let the answer come. Don't force it. You might be surprised what shows up. And if you feel ridiculous doing this, good. That means your ego is loosening its grip. Jung described the confrontation with the shadow as a continuous process that accompanies the whole of life. There's no moment where you defeat it. There's no finish line. There's only the ongoing commitment to see yourself more clearly. And here's what makes it worth it. When you integrate the shadow, you become more authentic. The gap between who you are and who you pretend to be starts to close. You stop performing so hard. You become more whole. Not perfect, never perfect, but less fragmented, less at war with yourself. And paradoxically, you become kinder to yourself and to others. Because when you stop projecting your own unresolved material onto the world, you start seeing people more clearly. You stop needing them to be villains in your story. The shadow isn't something to be feared or destroyed. It's something to be met, understood, welcomed home. Because the parts of you that you've been running from, they're still you. And they've been waiting, patiently, sometimes not so patiently, for you to turn around and look. That's the invitation. To become more fully, more honestly, yourself. And that, in the end, is the only freedom that matters.